Glamour Prestige presents Virtual Learning Party every Tuesday and Thursday starting March 24th, 2020 for students in grades 3 through 6, reading and English only.
Your hosts are Dr. Jacqueline Walker and Velvet Smith, who are ready to turn up for learning. Hey!
Okay, so for Thursdays, I can answer passage-based questions with 100% accuracy with the help of reading strategies, passages, videos, and activities. Hi guys, we missed you for 2 days now. So now today is Thursday, May 28th, and we are ready to get ready for learning. And today we're going to be learning all about
passages, working with those questions and skills that has to do with our subject this week, bees.
Okay, let's get ready.
All right, it's time for our outstanding openings, Hook the Reader. And today we're going to watch a short video on a mentor text called Please Please the Bees.
Welcome to Storyline Online, brought to you by the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I'm Rashida Jones, and today I'm going to read Please Please the Bees, written and illustrated by Gerald Kelly. Benedict was a creature of habit. He liked to do the same thing every day. Every morning, he woke up at the same time. Every morning, he stretched, he scratched, he yawned a great yawn. Every morning, the bees delivered 3 jars full of honey. Benedict ate the same breakfast he'd eaten since he was just a fuzzy cub, toast with honey and tea with extra honey. Next came his daily routine, practicing, perfecting his honey cake recipe, knitting, and running errands. At night, he'd read, then have one last cup of honey tea before bed. Life was sweet. Until one morning, things weren't the same. In fact, something terribly unsame had happened. There was no more honey. The bees had gone on strike. Benedict's breakfast wasn't the same without honey. Without his honey tea, he couldn't knit. Practice was dreadful. He didn't even bother with the errands. Benedict became deeply discouraged. Just then, he heard someone say, "Hey you, in the fur coat!" It was a very small bee with a remarkably loud voice. "We need to talk," said the bee. "Talk?" grumbled Benedict. "I let you all live in my yard. All I ask for is a few jars of honey. You should be grateful, not go on strike." "A few jars," said the bee. "Buddy, we deliver 3 jars of honey to you every day. Every month, every year. Do the math, Einstein." "The hive is a wreck," the bee continued. "It's all we can do to keep the walls from falling in. The roof leaks. Wind blows through the cracks. The last 3 queens up and quit on us because of the lousy work conditions." The bee showed Benedict the garden. "Look," the bee said, "weeds everywhere. We have to fly miles away just to find enough flowers to make our honey. So we voted to strike." "You're taking this for granted," the bee declared. "You want honey? Things need to change. It's up to you, Bear." And with that, the very small bee flew off. The thought of losing his honey sent a chill down Benedict's spine. He had a lot to think about. "Maybe I've been too selfish," Benedict said to himself. "I never thought about what the bees need. But how am I going to make this right?" So he did some research. He did a little shopping. And he did a lot of work. Benedict even learned how to harvest honey. I suppose it's a bit rude to expect them to do it all themselves, he thought. Finally, he was ready to show the bees all the work he'd done. What would they think? He held his breath as he waited. Then he heard the remarkably loud voice of the very small bee. "Drop the signs, girls! Time to get back to work." These days, Benedict is still a creature of habit. He still has his daily routine, but he doesn't take the honey for granted anymore. He knows his life is sweet. But now, it's even sweeter. For everyone. The end. I really enjoyed this book because it's all about being able to live with each other and respect each other and give and take, because that's the best part about being in a community, is being able to live together and have everybody's life be sweet at the same time. Thank you for watching Storyline Online. Make sure to watch all our other stories. Keep watching and keep reading.
Okay, guys, now it is time for our comprehension question. If you have this sheet, go ahead and pull it out. But if you don't, go ahead and write down this question and then write your answer. So the question is, why did the bees go on strike? If you need to pause it, go ahead and pause us. But if not, we're going to go ahead and tell you the answer.
Okay, so the bees went on strike because they felt unappreciated by the bear. So that's the answer. Did you get that answer correct?
Now it's time for our reading strategies.
Our reading strategy today is visualize. Think about using your senses to see, hear, taste, smell, and feel the author's words. Seeing a picture in your head.
Okay, guys, so we're going to go ahead and see if you can visualize this info text about how bees make honey. I'm going to read the text to you. Ms. Smith is going to go over and read the questions, and then we're going to go over the answers. How bees make honey. You probably know that bees make honey, but how exactly do they do it? It all starts with flowers. When a honeybee lands on a flower, it drinks in the flower's nectar, a sweet juice at the flower's center. The bee stores the nectar in its stomach. Then it moves on to more and more flowers. Once its stomach is completely full, it flies back to the hive. There, it regurgitates the nectar from its stomach. Other bees quickly flap their wings, which helps draw out excess moisture from the nectar, creating honey. Finally, the honey is put into a honeycomb made of beeswax.
All right, let's look at our key questions. Number 1, sequence. What's the first thing a bee does in order to make honey? Number 2, sequence. What is the final step in the honey making process? Number 3, author's purpose. Is the author's purpose to inform or persuade you? Number 4, context clues. What do you think regurgitates means? Swallow, spits up, flies. And number 5, stretch. How do honeybees help people? How can they hurt people? Tell about it.
So if you have this sheet, make sure that you have it out and go ahead and answer all of the questions. And as before, if you don't have the sheet, number a blank sheet of paper from 1 through 5, and then give us your answers. You can go ahead and pause us, because when we come back, we're going to give you the answers. All right, let's go.
All right, so let's look at our answers. For question number 1, it says, what's the first thing a bee does in order to make honey? And it lands on a flower and drinks its nectar.
Number 2, sequence. What is the final step in the honey making process? The honey is put into the honeycomb made of beeswax.
Number 3, author's purpose. Is the author's purpose to inform or persuade you? It is inform.
Number 4, context clues. What do you think regurgitate means? It means to spit up.
And number 5, stretch. How do honeybees help people? How can they hurt people? Tell about it. They hurt people by stinging them. Some people are allergic to the sting bite, and it can make them very sick. And remember, for number 5, you can have varied answers.
Okay, guys, now it is time to look back at our strategy for the week, our reading strategy, which is visualize. How do readers visualize? Good readers visualize by creating mental and sensory images while reading. They imagine a picture or movie of the text in their minds. Readers change or revise their visualizations often while reading. Sensory details and descriptive language helps readers to create vivid images. This allows readers to better comprehend and become emotionally invested in what they are reading. So here's an example from Owl Moon. Paul turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. So if you can see, it's a text to mind, and in our mind, we are visualizing that owl. He's sitting on the branch, and it's a little boy looking back at him. He's looking back at us, and we are just staring at each other. This is an example of how visualizing can look.
All right, so we're getting ready to practice our reading strategy in our passage.
All right, guys, now it is time to read our passage for today's lesson. The title is called Honey to the Bee. As we scroll down, you see that we do have our first text feature. It has a bee that is on top of a plant, and it does not have a caption, so it doesn't have any other additional information. So let's get straight into the paragraph. You do have the passage with you if it was able to be printed out. If not, as you hear this, you can write down information that you think may help you in answering the question. So here we go. Bees are flying insects that feed on nectar and pollen. They are usually yellow and black and covered in fuzzy hair that makes collecting pollen easier. A bee's body is similar to that of other insects. For instance, an ant with 3 major sections: the head, the middle, and the section called the thorax, and the last section called the abdomen. The head of a bee has 5 eyes for seeing and 2 antennae for touching and smelling. 2 sets of wings and 3 sets of legs can be found on a bee's thorax. Depending on the type of bee, the last set of legs may have little sacs that store the pollen that the bee has collected from flowers. Many types of bees have stingers. The bee stinger is the most feared part of a bee, and for good reason. Filled with poison, the stinger is a bee's protection from danger. The stingers are around 12 millimeters long. There are over 20,000 known bee species in the world. The best known is probably the honeybee. So we're going to go back and look, and we're going to circle or underline information that should help us. So I will underline in the first sentence that bees are flying insects, feed on nectar and pollen, usually yellow and black, covered in fuzzy hair, that makes collecting pollen easier. A bee's body, similar other insects, with 3 major sections: head, middle, then thorax, and then the abdomen. Head, 5 eyes for seeing, 2 antennae for touching and smelling, 2 sets of wings, 3 sets of legs, found on thorax. And then as we go down, you can have that depending on type of bee, legs might have little sacs store pollen. And then also I would put in bees have stingers, most feared part of a bee, filled with poison, bees protection from danger, around 12 millimeters long, and then best known is honeybee. All right. If you have something similar to this or something a little different, this is just to help you to be able to answer questions or information that needs to be taken away from that particular paragraph.
All right, so our second paragraph, honeybees live in beehives which have a distinct order that helps things run smoothly. At the bottom of the totem pole are the workers. Workers are young female bees. Some of their main duties include going out to find food, nectar and pollen, building the hive, and keeping it clean. Honeybees will travel up to 8 miles if necessary to find nectar and pollen to bring back to the hive. Worker bees are actually the only bees that ever do any stinging. When this does happen, it is usually because they are trying to protect their hive from harm. A bee rarely stings when it is away from the hive, but it might sting if it senses danger. The lifespan of a worker bee is anywhere from 4 to 9 months. All right, so some key information that we need to highlight here is that honeybees live in beehives, so we can underline that, and that they have a distinct order, and then it helps things run smoothly. At the bottom of the totem pole are the workers, so we're going to underline workers. And worker bees are female bees, and that they go and find food, which is the nectar and the pollen, building the hive, and keeping it clean. And that they travel up to 8 miles for nectar and pollen. Worker bees are actually the only bees that do stinging. So we're going to underline only bees that do any stinging. And then they are doing that to try to protect their hive from harm. And then it says it might sting if it is danger. And then the lifespan of a worker bee is 4 to 9 months.
Okay, our third paragraph. The queen honeybee is the biggest bee in the hive. There's usually only one per hive, and her job is to grow the family by laying eggs that will become the next generation of honeybees. She lays over 1,000 eggs per day and can live anywhere from 3 to 5 years. When the time comes for a new queen to take over, some larvae are placed in special chambers to grow queen bees. These larvae are fattened up with royal jelly, a nutritious substance that worker bees secrete. It usually takes about 2 weeks for a female larva to grow into a queen bee. The first female bee to become a queen bee kills the other potential queen bees. So we want to underline queen, biggest bee in hive, usually only one per hive, job, grow family by laying eggs. That will become the next generation of honeybees. Lays over 1,000 eggs per day and can live anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And then also for a new queen to take over, larvae are placed in special chambers to grow queen bees. And the larvae, fattened, royal jelly, worker bees secrete. Takes about 2 weeks for a female larva to grow into a queen bee. And the first female bee to become a queen bee kills other potential queen bees. All right, you should have something similar to that underline or that other information that'll help you.
All right, and our last paragraph. Male honeybees are called drones. They don't have stingers and they don't collect nectar or pollen. The only purpose is to mate with the queen. Several hundred drones can live in a hive at one time. As the winter months approach, the males are kicked out of the hive in order to make it easier for the queen and her workers to survive. Food needs to be saved as there are fewer flowers to collect pollen and nectar from. Less food means the drones are the first to go. All right, so let's underline here. Male honeybees are called drones. They don't have stingers, and they don't collect nectar or pollen. Their only purpose is to mate and the queen. Several hundred live in the hive. As winter months approach, let's underline that, males are kicked out of the hive. And that is to make it easier for the queen and her workers to survive. Food needs to be saved, so we underline that. And there are fewer flowers to collect pollen and nectar from. And then it says less food, drones are first to go.
All right, now it is time for the questions. Number 1, what is a bee? A, an insect that lives near water and eats fish. B, a red and black insect that lives under the ground. C, a flying insect that collects nectar and pollen. D, a crawling insect with 2 sets of legs and no wings.
Number 2, what does this passage describe? A, wings, legs, mouths, and trees. B, totem poles and winter weather. C, different honeybees in a beehive. Or D, poison and measurement.
3, different bees in a hive have different duties. What evidence from the passage supports this statement? A, worker bees gather food, the queen bee lays eggs. B, bee stingers are about 12 millimeters long. C, bees have 2 sets of wings and 3 sets of legs. D, the honeybee is probably the best known bee species.
Number 4, which bees are probably the least important bees in a beehive? A, worker bees. B, the queen bee. C, female bees. Or D, drones.
And lastly, number 5, what is the passage mainly about? A, honeybees. B, the bodies of bees. C, different types of insects. D, antenna and wings. So you can go ahead and pause us here, because when we come back, we will be going over the answers.
All right, here are the answers to our questions from our passage. Number 1, what is a bee? The answer is C, a flying insect that collects nectar and pollen.
Number 2, what does this passage describe? C, different honeybees in a beehive.
Number 3, different bees in a hive have different duties. What evidence from the passage supports this statement? A, worker bees gather food, the queen bee lays eggs.
Number 4, which bees are probably the least important bees in a beehive? D, drones.
Number 5, what is this passage mainly about? A, honeybees.
Hi guys, it has come to an end of our lesson and also the end of the week for us. So we won't see you again until Tuesday. And on Tuesday, our skill will be
vocabulary strategy. So we're going to learn how to use word parts such as prefixes and suffixes and antonyms and synonyms to figure out the meaning of unknown words.
All right, see you next week.